Hi guys. In a little bit, you're going to watch a conversation between me and my good friend Demetrius. Before that starts, I want to read you from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, starting in verse 31. To the Jews who believed him, Jesus said, "If you hold on to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." They answered him, "We are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves to anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free?" Jesus replied, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." So you're going to hear a story in a little bit about a time that a good friend of mine set me free from some sin in my life. I read this because a lot of times I walk through life thinking that I'm a pretty good person and that I don't need to do much work. I don't need to do much more work. I'm basically pretty good. And that good things in life now need to come to me because I'm basically pretty good. What I've been learning the last 2 weeks in the midst of the racial waking up that's happening in our country is that I need to commit to a season of listening and learning because I've got a long way to go. Jesus says that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. If that's true, everything that's true comes from Jesus. And if something's true, we don't ever need to be afraid of it. And so we don't ever need to be afraid of listening and learning more as people because that just means we're getting closer to Jesus because Jesus is the truth. And so if you look like me, and if you were born in the same skin color as I was, would you watch this next video? Would you watch this conversation? Would you commit to listening and learning to truth? Sometimes you may hear something that's not true. We can just move on. But if it's true, it's friendly. All facts are friendly. I think it's time for us to do some listening. I want to say one more thing and then we'll roll the video. I have never used the word woke before in my life, and I realize I just said it, but I don't necessarily like it. And part of that's because it's kind of got politicized and it kind of doesn't mean good things sometimes. But what it comes from is waking up. And we always talk about waking up, becoming aware is a good thing. But have you ever been woken up before you were ready? It's not pleasant. I'm grumpy when I get woken up before I'm ready. Waking up before you're ready is hard. We might have to enter into some hard, uncomfortable situations to wake up. But I think it's time for us to enter into those with some bravery and some compassion and some love. You might be uncomfortable. That's okay. It's time for us to wake up. Demetrius Collins, my friend. How long have we been friends, Demetrius?
We've been friends. Like I say, '02 is when we pledged, and
Uh-huh.
so
We were in the
18
same
years,
fraternity,
18
social club.
years.
18 years
We lived together
since
for a
we've
while.
lived together. We were housemates for a while. Shared a dog briefly.
Uh,
The name of which we will not mention right now. And man, I have always been happy that we're friends. And that's true of all my friends, but there was something special about our friendship. I've always felt like um, it's like you have friends, and then you have friends where like so much doesn't need to be spoken.
yeah,
And I've always felt about you and very few other people like I don't need to explain to Demetrius how I feel right now. He knows how I feel, and like, and I think sometimes I've been that for you, but you can tell me if I haven't. But I just, I've always appreciated our friendship, and I, 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 I have kind of told a story of our friendship for a while now. And I told you the other day when I was asking you to be a part of this that I realized I'd never told you that I have told other people so much about a particular moment in our friendship where you taught me a lot about myself, and until yesterday. And so uh, you agreed to do this with me, and I just want us to kind of as natural as possible kind of reflect on that moment in our friendship and when you taught me so much. And I've said to you, I'm in a season of learning and listening. And so you taught me a lot in our friendship. You continue to teach me a lot, and I want to be open to you teaching me again today. So here's what I remember. We were housemates for a while, and before that we were friends, and we 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 bonded quickly. We liked to be around each other quickly, but had a lot in common. But I is a pretty stupid 19, 20, 21-year old. I I always like to joke around with my friends, and I always liked to like rib each other, because that for some reason like meant that like we liked each other and we trusted each other. And for the most part, it was all good. But uh, one thing that I would do repeatedly is I would I would just kind of like point out that you were black and that I was white. Like, and that was like somehow the context of a pretext for a joke. And it wasn't, I don't think, I hope the joke was never like, um, you're black and I'm white and therefore I'm better. But it was just like, let's make light of this. And I thought that brought us closer, like all other joking we would do with each other. Because I don't know. I guess I wanted to believe that the more I could joke with you, the more you trusted me, the more you liked me. Um, but uh, you would sometimes laugh. You would sometimes tell me to shut up. You would tell me sometimes you would just shrug it off. But there was one moment. It was when we were living in the house, two houses down from University Church of Christ. And there was one, I don't even remember the joke now, but I made a joke and you just said, "Hey, shut up." And you said it in such a way that I was like, oh, oh, it's different this time. And well, the way I remember it is I said, "Man, I'm just kidding." And you said, "Well, stop kidding." And I think I may have said something like, "Man, I'm sorry you've laughed before." And this is what I remember vividly, because you said, "When I laugh, it's the quickest way to get you to shut up. It's not funny. It's never been funny." And I think I just kind of stared at you like waiting, I don't know, for you to let me off the hook or something, and you didn't. And uh, I want to say I'm so grateful for that moment in my life. That was a moment that's changed my life. But I also want to stop talking, and I want to ask you how, like, if you remember it any differently, or if there's any more details you want to give to it, because I've been talking too much already.
So this is sort of like, I'm just gonna, it's not necessarily that moment. It's just, I guess that moment is like a microcosm of my life overall, right? Because what most people don't understand is that even though, like, when people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, you're not really black." That's
Mm,
I think that's more of an insult than most people realize it is, because that's to say that blackness can be defined, or African Americanness can be defined in a certain set of things, that tells me more about like what you think about African Americans in the first place than anything else, right? Like whether, no matter which side it comes from, it's just like, huh, interesting. What does that mean to you? And so like, if I'm able to joke, like the reason jokes can be funny and jokes can be not funny is because there's truth behind all of them, right? And
Yeah.
so like when people that are your friends don't quite understand some of the like underlying things that go behind certain jokes, it's like they don't realize it's funny. They don't realize how unfunny it actually is. And
Yeah.
and to be totally honest, certain African Americans have been trained to just let it go because the argument that follows is not worth, or the
Mm.
discussion that follows is not worth it, because
Yeah.
there's always a defense of everything and not necessarily a listening to how something makes me feel.
Right. And so it objectifies you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, um, I realize now, 16 years after that happened, that I don't think I could put words to it till now, that my joking with you about our different races was a way of me saying like, um, that history isn't present here. Like you and me, we don't have this tension. Like that was my way of resolving um, the history between our different races. And what I was doing was saying your experience doesn't matter. Like, and I know that's kind of a big leap, but like I'm going to try to say it again because I want to make it make a lot of sense because I'm just now learning it. Like I said, when I see Ahmaud Arbery get shot, when I see George Floyd choked to death, I feel mad and I feel sad and I feel horrified, but I don't ever feel scared because I do not realistically think that's a threat to me or my family. And that is only because I am white. And so I don't experience those in the first person. And so when I make a joke that my goal is to relieve our tension instead of living into the tension, um, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter to me that you see those videos differently because I just want us to be cool. Like it's just like saying I don't see color. And like that is robbing you of like uh, all of your experience. Like it's saying that your life experience doesn't matter to me because I just want us to be cool. And I didn't realize how selfish it was. Not to mention that like it was racist. I would have never said to myself that I was a racist, but making jokes about race is moving towards racist behavior.
And
And
it's also a recognition of racist behavior, because like if you understand that it exists, even if it's not part of what you are,
yeah,
like think about who told you those jokes at first. They may have believed them wholeheartedly. Think of
yeah,
like what people don't. I had this discussion just last night. Like consider this. We're only like two generations removed from people who preached, like Luke mentioned the fact, like we're only our preacher here mentioned the fact we're only two generations away from people who preach from their pulpits
yeah,
that I was lesser.
yep.
Just that's two generations.
Like
That's
that's part of
four,
the gospel.
yes. Two generations is not a long time in the grand scheme of like hundreds of years.
Yeah,
40 years versus hundreds of years. And so
Yeah.
we're still trying to get that out. And that's what people don't understand, is that like
Yeah.
your grandparents taught them something. Even if they went against it, it's still sort of, there's people that fought against it and there's people that just soaked it in. And the people that soaked
Yeah.
it in still exist.
Right. Right. Man, so I'm struggling because like um I said I was sorry that day and I meant it. I think I've said I'm sorry since and I meant it. And I don't want to just say I'm sorry now because our students are watching. Um so I want to acknowledge my previous apologies is still valid. Um but um but what I want to say today that I don't think I've said before is thank you, because you loved me enough to have an uncomfortable conversation. You love me enough to be having this uncomfortable conversation. And like um, that that helped my life be better because you love me enough to tell me to shut up. And and you helped me realize that like it's not enough to not be a white supremacist. Like that I need to because I love you, move towards being actively not racist.
Yeah.
And that started with like not telling stupid jokes, but like it also has been a motivating, energizing force in my life to be like, I love my black brothers and sisters. I need to be actively not racist. I need to be doing things that are anti-racist, not just not racist. Because it's almost not helpful to be like someone's racist or not racist. Like I don't even know what those two things mean anymore. But some people are actively racist, and some people are trying to actively not be racist, black or white. And like I think I know I've heard you say before, your ultimate allegiance isn't to your color, it's to your Lord. And like I don't think you can be allied to the Lord of all people, of all creation, and not be moving towards anti-racism.
Yeah.
And you taught me that day. And like part of what I've learned is that um, that set me free. Um, that I was in some ways so stupidly imprisoned by our country's historical hatred of black bodies. Not to the same extent as black people, but like that my life was less than it could be. My life was less than liberated because I was playing into this stupid, hateful culture instead of actively working against it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And
So this is simply what to do going forward.
okay.
So the first thing you need to do is not even align yourself with like Black Lives Matter or like even like you don't need to do that. That's the first thing you need to do is acknowledge the fact that Jesus is the savior of all. And part of the reason that life is the way it is on this earth is because there's people that say they follow Jesus that have not been following him, that they've been sitting. This is the people that are like I'm not racist people, or the ones that are just sitting on the sidelines, not really in the game, right? So
Yeah.
like
So
you have to
I'm
actually want to be part of the game.
yeah. So I'm hearing you say not that they should not ever join some movements or do some sort of social organizing, but that first and foremost, um, we need to turn our eyes to Christ.
Yes, align with Christ first,
Yeah.
and then in your alignment with Christ, pursue those things that are Christ like pursue those organizations that are pushing towards a more Christian agenda, if you will. I
Yeah.
don't have a better word than that, but like
It's okay.
that it's pushing towards a more Christian view of things,
Hmm.
not necessarily trying to make things fair. Fair is the floor. Making things
Hmm.
godly. Fair is just the bare minimum that we can do, but turning in
Wow.
something to something godly is what we're making His kingdom come. We're bringing His kingdom.
Yeah.
This is our time to actively bring the kingdom here
Yeah.
now in this time more than probably any other time, because now people are actually listening.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. And so, like, talk about this. So we talked about this yesterday, and I think you can probably say it better than I can. One thing that seems to be missing from our cultural dialogue right now is why white supremacy, why um, Black Lives Not mattering is a theological problem that grieves the heart of God.
Yeah. So consider this once again, within God
Yeah.
um, God had sent Jesus to show love and to teach love and to preach love to those around him, and love not as in like romantic love, but like actively pursuing the work of love,
Yeah.
the work of being patient, the work of being kind, the work of being understanding. And part of that is like something that no one has ever asked, like out loud to other people, is what causes a grown man or a group of people to be so afraid of people they've never met, so aggressive towards people they've never met, to cause that kind of harm when their job is to, like with police officers, when their job is to protect and serve. Like, what is at the heart of
Yeah.
that? That's
Yeah.
the question. And if we can get to that, it's like it's about heart surgery. It's not even about convicting people. It's about changing hearts. Like, why did you do this? What is happening in your life? What's happening in your heart? How? Because with the heart of Jesus, with the heart of understanding love and peace and patience, you get a different outcome. You don't
Yeah.
get anger. You don't get wrath. You get long suffering.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
It's not present
Right.
in on either side technically. And so when we see the fruit being shown, we follow the fruit.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. So we want to be more Christ-like. We want to follow the heart of our Savior. Um, we want to get Jesus right, and we believe that when we are um, unapologetically 100% following the Son of God, that um, we'll be liberated from all suffering, all injustice. So this is an impossible question to ask you, and I'm acknowledging that ahead of time. What would Jesus be doing in our communities right now? And like, therefore, like, how do we enact? How do we embody the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ in our communities right now?
We listen to what people were saying, not just
Okay.
like what Jesus did. He didn't just listen to what people said.
Yeah.
So let's take Mary and Martha when Lazarus died.
Mm-hmm.
They both had a simple statement: had you been here, our brother would have lived.
Right.
But Jesus' response to each of those statements, though it's the same words, were quite different. He wept with one, he corrected and informed another. So as you listen to what people are telling you, don't listen to their words, listen to their hearts. Like if like you're a parent, when if Kel came up to and said, "Dad, I don't think you love me,"
Yeah.
his words say that, but his heart is saying, you've done something to me that you may or may not be aware of that has hurt me to the point that I don't feel you love me. And so what you do as a parent is say, man, you don't just say like, I love you, and then like shoo them away and you move
Right.
on your way. It's,
Right.
oh, what made you feel that way? What have I done to make you feel that way? Which is what
Yeah.
we have not done.
Yeah. So one thing I think I'm hearing you say, which is something almost like in another context, but it feels so alive to hear you say this now, is that like, um, and I'm going to butcher this, but like I think Brene Brown says, like, we can't ever resolve conflict long distance. We've got to lean in. And like, what I think I'm hearing you say right now is maybe the most powerful thing we can do right now is foster healthy relationships with people of color, with marginalized people, and listen and like lean in, as uncomfortable as it is. And so here's something I want to ask you also. I'm learning that, and I think Austin Channing Brown is kind of like the person who's uh, brought this idea to the fore. Is that it's not Black people's job to educate white people about almost 600 years of history of enslavement and mistreatment of African Americans on this continent. And so like help me with this dilemma I'm having. Like, it's not Demetrius's job to educate David. However, I'm trying to do the work. I'm trying to lean in. I'm trying to listen to you because I love and I respect you, and I think you have something to teach me that I can't learn from a book. So like, how do I resolve that tension? Because those two things almost seem to be contradictory.
So what's funny is, if you look into the art, like if you look into arts, like
Okay.
art and literature has like sort of shown how people feel about this country, like on either side.
Yeah.
So if you look at like how movies are written and like things, the way things that people are depicted in movies, that's
Okay.
that's the first thing. It's like, if you don't get a guttural, like the feeling you feel when you watch a movie where someone's mistreated, and then like when you when you come to realization that it's like based on a true story, or if you watch Selma,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, that's a real thing. It's not just like, oh, they didn't just make that up for movies. They probably like toned it
Yeah.
down for the movies. Like, but like if you think about like, oh, that was real, and understanding history, and know that history is not really in the past. It's shaping our present.
Yeah. Yep.
History shapes the present.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you say is like, one thing white people can do is both. Like, we can read a book, and we can say, hey friend, it's not your job to teach me, but this is what I'm learning. Would you please speak the truth in love to me, because I think you have something to teach me.
And
Uh,
don't make us a monolith. Like
yeah. Okay.
like
Yep.
like my experience is different from your experience.
Yep.
My experience is different from your experience, but it's also different from other Black people's experience.
Okay.
Like, that's like, just like there's different upbringings for every group of people. Like,
Yeah.
not all people are the same. There are some experiences I understand, and there are other experiences that I don't understand, just based on cultural backgrounds. But like, overall, like, we went to the same college, so we have
Yeah.
some of the same cultural experiences based on that, and
Yeah.
that's the truth. And so I grew up in an area where I was fostered into. I grew up with two parents that loved me, and in a
Yeah.
church that loved me, and had support all the way through to get all those things, right?
Yeah.
And then there's others that don't have that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the same as them in that sense, but the problem is, when people see the skin,
Yeah.
assumptions start taking place.
So going back to
doing the work of leaning in, doing the work of like making friends. Like, it's not enough for me to say, okay, check, I've got a black friend, and to like not learn anything about him or learn about him. Like, my work is to love you as a brother in Christ, and it means to get to know you. It means to respect your perspective. Like, it kind of just comes back to like treating you like I want to be treated,
Yes.
and treating you with love, because you, not only is it not your job to like teach me about what's happening right now, but like you can't and shouldn't speak for all black people for all time, because like that's what I'm hearing you say. Is that, like, do you want to correct any of that, or like?
No, that's correct. Like,
Okay.
it's not my job to be this, because I'm your black friend. I don't
Yeah.
speak for all black people.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're my white friend, you can't speak for all white people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I love you,
Love you too.
and I'm thankful that you're willing to have this conversation with me. I think you said something about like how like this time really matters, and there's a lot of times where I come home from work and I go like, I think I did work today. I sat in a lot of meetings, but it feels like this moment is different. I think that's what you said, in that if this isn't the work of the gospel, if this isn't like what I think when I was around the same age as I was making stupid jokes, feeling called to ministry to do, like, what is, right? I mean, and so um, I hope you and I can keep talking.
Of course.
I know we're gonna keep talking because we still talk a lot, but like, I want us, even though this might be the one video we show Highland Student Ministry, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, this is the beginning of meaningful work, and I'm grateful that you're willing to have a hard conversation, awkward conversation with me. I'm grateful you were loving me enough to tell me I was being a jerk 20 years ago, and just thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for loving Jesus.
You're welcome.
All right, man. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a good one.